Good day, folks. Welcome to Andrew's Life. I hope everyone is doing great today. Let's get to it. Well, this video is going to be about making it about yourself. And I mean exactly what I just said. Make your life about yourself. I'm going to use myself as an example. I mean, there was a time in my life, and I'm going to be real honest here. There was a time in my life where I did certain things in the hopes that I would be able to one day attract Mrs. Right. I would potentially marry her, give her my last name, we would have a family, all that good stuff. Well, you know, as time went by, the more I dated, the less desire I had in trying to live my life in a manner that impressed anybody at all. I mean, over time, I would say by the time I was in my late 30s, I got to the point where when it came to dating, I didn't give a crap whether I had a girlfriend or I didn't have a girlfriend. It didn't make a difference. And in my late 30s, I took on that type of an attitude. When I when I turned 40, that attitude only uh, I don't want to say it got worse because I don't look at it as a bad thing. But I guess you can say when I turned 40, you can say that I really got set in my ways, so to speak. I mean, I know there's a lot of men out here, especially some of you younger men out here. I mean, you guys don't come out and say it straight up. You don't say it outright. But when I watch some of your videos, I can tell that down deep, you're frustrated. You feel you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing in your life that's right. You know, maybe you're hitting the gym, you're looking good, and you know, you got this good paying job, and you feel you're doing everything humanly possible to attract Mrs. Rights. However, every time you think you may have met Mrs. Right, you find out that you did not meet Mrs. Right. Mrs. Right was really Mrs. Wrong. Mrs. Right was really Uh, Mrs. Right was not Mrs. Right. Mrs. Right may have been Mrs. Deceptive. That's what I wanted to say. And there's a lot of you men out here that appear to be extremely frustrated about the fact that you're single. You don't have no woman. You know, you're not, no woman has your last name. You don't have no children. And some of you want kids. Now, although there's a bunch of you out here that claim you're happy being single, I can tell by some of your videos that you're not happy being single. You would love to marry and have a woman share your last name. You would love to start a family. Many men would love to have a family. But for one reason or another, it's not happening, and you want it to happen, and you're frustrated because it's not happening. So now you find yourself doing certain things in your life because you desperately, I'm going to call it for what it is, but you desperately want to meet Mrs. Right. Like maybe you're thinking, okay, well, I might need to work a better paying job. I mean, never mind about. I mean, can't even speak. Never mind about the fact that the occupation that you're looking at going into may not even fit who you are as a person. It may not even fit your skill set right. And maybe if it does fit your skill set right, but it may not fit who you are as a person. It may not be the type of work that you desire to do. But you're gonna do it anyways because hey, you know you're gonna get in here. You're gonna make that six-figure income. You're gonna live this grand picket fence lifestyle. You're gonna drive that newer car, wear them nice clothes and nice shoes. And when you meet a woman and you take her out on a date, you're gonna wow the hell out of her. You're gonna take her to nice dinners. You're gonna do all that for her, knowing good and well that if it was just yourself and you didn't have in mind of meeting Mrs. Right, you would be perfectly content with just, you know what, I'm gonna go work a blue collar job somewhere to make to where I might earn, let's say, 50, 60 some a year. I'm gonna live in a working class community. I'm gonna purchase a home, and I'm gonna live in a working class community. I'm gonna drive my 25-year-old F-150 pickup truck. A lot of you men would be perfectly happy living like that. But the reason why you don't strive to live like that, it's not because, it's not because you don't want to. It's not even because it's beneath you. It's because you fear if you live like that, you're not gonna ever attract Mrs. Rights. And I notice on a lot of your Menosphere channels, they encourage men to level up. They encourage men to hit the weights, work out, get healthy, which are all things that we ought to be doing as men, female or no female. Whether you're looking to date, marry, or you're happy being a hermit by yourself, those are things that every man ought to do regardless. Like for me, I know I need to hit the weights more. I know I need to get back to the gym more. And by the way, this week I'm ashamed. I only been to the gym 3 times this week. The rest of the days I've been at my house getting things done at my new house so I can move in eventually. That and I've been busy working a lot of hours between my primary job and my little side hustle so I can make the money necessary to pay for all the shit I'm having done to my new house. But like I told you guys before, I'm some of that stuff that you guys saw on the video that I made yesterday, I paid other people to do that work because I figured it would be a lot easier and quicker that way than for me to try to do it all by myself. Because I do it by myself, I might be there for 6 months. But if I pay the right people to do it, they do it. Man, they get that shit done in a week. But anyways, I'm gonna use myself as an example. Like, I got to the point where I remember back when I was in my 20s, I used to be what you would call a pleaser, or what some people nowadays would call a simp. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I used to be like that. I'm gonna keep it real. I used to be a type of fella that if I come across a woman and she look alright, we gonna exchange numbers and I'm gonna ask her out for. I'm gonna ask if she'll be willing to go on a date and all that type of stuff. She said yes, okay, cool. Uh, we talk and we decide where we're gonna go and eat, and we take it from there. And, I used to be that type of person that if I was really into a woman, I would I would change my wardrobe. This is one chick back in the day that I was dealing with, for a hot second when I was living up in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, I've never been the kind of person to be flashy. I've never been the kind of person to really pay any attention to name brand clothes or any of that type of shit. But this is one chick, man. She was obsessed with name brand clothes. This is back in the early 2000s. Just to let y'all know how old I am. This is back in the early 2000s. I gotta get the door for a minute. I'll be right back with you guys. All right, I'm back. One of my neighbors was asking me something, so I had to stop the video and answer the door real quick. But I'm back. So, anyways, like I was saying, there's this one chick that me and her, we dated. We went on several dates together. This is back in the early 2000s when I was still living up in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, and I've never been the type of person to really pay mind to name brand clothes or any of that type of stuff. Even when I was in high school, it just never, I never cared. But this woman who I was dating at the time, she was obsessed with name brand clothes. She was all about the Tommy Hilfigers, the Nautica, whatever name brand clothes that were, that were in during that time. She was in. She knew all about that. So, we had our first date. I wore what I typically wore. I mean, granted, I did look presentable. At least I thought I did. But she told me straight up that she didn't like what I wore. And I looked at her. It's like, well, what's wrong with what I got on? I mean, I had a polo shirt. I had a pair of slacks. I had on some nice casual shoes. I mean, I didn't think there's anything wrong with what I wore. And then she told me, well, those don't look like they're name brand. So I'm puzzled. Like, it's like, what you mean they're not name brand? I mean, I had a pair of slacks on. They were Bugle Boy slacks, and I don't know what brand my shirt was. I forgot. So she's like, man, I gotta hook you up. So I giggled. I said, okay, all right. I kind of laughed it off a little bit, and then we decided that we were going to get together again on another date, uh, which was going to be like 3 or 4 days later. So 3 or 4 days later, you know, I'm not really stunting what she was saying about my clothes and them not being name brand clothes. I just picked some other clothes out of my closet, threw them on, and we met at this restaurant. Well, no, let me back up. The first time we met, we drove separately. The next time, I told her I'll come to her house and I'll pick her up. So I went to her house. I picked her up, and she didn't. Us like she jumped in my car, and she is looking like she's like disappointed. It's like, what's wrong? And then she is like, hey man, you gotta step your car game up. And I'm thinking to myself, man, ain't nothing wrong with my car game. I mean, my car was nice and clean. It was shiny. The interior was clean. Cause I cleaned that car thoroughly because I knew I was going to be taking it. I knew I was going to be using it on a date. Now at the time, my car was 8 years old. I had a '94 Mercury Sable, and this was 2002. So she's like, man, you gotta step your car game up. Now so again, that's like, yeah, whatever. Obviously, I didn't have the money to step my car game up because at the time I was making $10 an hour. So stepping up my car game was not anything that, even back in '02, it was not anything I wanted to do, and I did not want to entertain a car note at that time. So okay, we went on this second date. And I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be it. This is gonna be all. She ain't delivering me no more. She already told me she didn't like my clothes. She told me she didn't like my car. It was too old. I need to step it up a little bit. So she's like, well, we can. It's like, well, when can we see each other again? I said, okay. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, we can see each other in another week because I had a lot going on between my two jobs and family. I had a lot going on, so it's all good. We'll see each other another week. So another week goes by. We get together, and this time, we again I picked her up, and when she came into my car, she had a whole bunch of crap with her. And I'm looking at I'm looking at these bags. It's like, what's all that? I mean, at first I'm thinking, man, I know she ain't trying to move up in the crib with me because I have my own place. And at the time, she had an apartment, and she told me that she didn't like her landlord, and she was looking to move out. So I'm looking around. I was like, man, I know she ain't trying to move up in the crib with me. And then when we got to the restaurant, Before we even got inside, she showed me what she bought. She bought me two pair of shoes. She bought me two pair of Nike shoes because she didn't like my shoes. I think at the time I had on some Adidas, but she bought me two pair of Nikes. She bought me two. She bought me one Tommy Hilfiger shirt and one Nautica shirt, and she bought me a pair of, I think they're Tommy Hilfiger jeans. And I ain't gonna lie, them clothes are looking good. I mean, everything was looking good. And she's like, "Hey man, can you try them on for me?" It's okay, no problem. So, I went on ahead. We went into the restaurant and we got seated. And then I proceeded to go to the men's room and I tried on all the clothes she done purchased. And I said, "Yeah, they all fit." And they said, "Okay, well, the next time we see each other, I would like for you to wear those kind of clothes." So I said, "Okay, yeah, whatever." And I'm thinking, okay, I didn't buy that shit. She bought that shit. So, yeah, man, I ain't tripping. Same thing goes for the shoes. So we proceed with our date. We do what we do. We go on a date. We go to my house for a little bit. We do what it do. And then we see each other a few days later. And a few days later, I actually wore one of the outfits that she purchased for me. She liked it. And now this time, she suggested that she comes and picks me up. And I'm telling her, no, I don't do that. I'm the man. I'm gonna pick you up. And then she's like, well, I'd rather drive my car. It's like, well, what's wrong with my car? And then she's like, well, your car is too old. It's like, so? It runs. It gets you from point one to point two. So what's the issue? And then she's like, well, I just I'm just not used to riding in older cars. So it's like, okay, whatever. Now obviously I was at this time I was still young. I was still chasing after uh, I was still chasing skirts and all that other type of shit. Now, so it was what it was. I mean, obviously now if a woman came at me like that, I would not even deal with her, not even for another second. But anyways, I decided to allow her to pick me up. So she picked me up in her car, which was a 2002 SUV of some sort. I forgot what type of SUV it was. It was a 2002 SUV. It is brand new. So we went on another date, had a good time. And then 2 days later, she gives me a call. And so okay, what she called me for? So I called her back and see what the hell she wanted. And then she's like, well, I just want to let you know something. It's okay what you want to let me know. And then she's like, well, I don't think you're going to be the right type of guy for me. It's like, okay, why not? And then she told me, well, for one, I noticed that you don't wear name brand clothes. And secondly, you drive older vehicles. And thirdly, I prefer a man that earns better money. Now, at the time, I think me and her were earning about the same amount of money. But that's what she told me. So I'm thinking, okay, well, and again, I'm gonna be real with you people. Now, granted, me and her, we went on several dates at this point. We had a wonderful time together. The bedroom was good. So I'm feeling some kind of way. I'm feeling some kind of way. So I'm thinking, what can I do to step my game up? Obviously, I couldn't buy a new car because I didn't have the money. So what I did was I spent like five. I mean, this is no lie. This is no lie. I took $500 and I went to. Now at the time, I was living in Cleveland, so I went to the Great Northern Mall, which is located in North Olmsted, which is about and I want to say that's about maybe a half hour, give or take, from Cleveland. So I went to the Great Northern Mall, I hit up a few department stores, and I bought a whole bunch of name brand clothes. I even bought me some name brand casual shoes, like some name brand casual shoes. So I'm thinking, okay, I got this name brand stuff. Maybe, maybe we can work it out. She'll change her mind about not wanting to be with me no longer. So I called her up and I was like, yeah, can we do this one more date? And then she's like, okay. So I show up and I done got some new shit. And she's like, man, okay, you stepping up your clothing game a little bit. Okay, yeah, okay. So I'm thinking, oh, good, I got her back. So we went on ahead, we went on a date, we had dinner. Except this time, when we after the date, rather than going to my house, she wanted to go to her house. So we went to her house. We chit chatted for a little bit, and we sat down on her couch, and she told me, well, I just don't think you're gonna be the right person for me because I am who I am. I'm not into the blame blame. And at the time, my money wasn't really hitting on a whole lot. She thought my vehicle was too old. And she's like, I just rather date a man that's got it together a little more. That's okay, whatever. So at this point, there's nothing I can say, nothing I can do. She had her mind made up. So I walk out of her house, and I'm feeling some kind of way. So anyhow, as time goes by and as I get older, obviously I go on more dates. I get into more relationships, and I find in a lot of those relationships I've been in too, I find myself simping. I find myself doing a whole lot just to appease the woman whom I'm with, hoping that I'm gonna win her over or some shit like that. But at first it seemed like, okay, everything is good. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't want her over. We good. But as time goes by, everything begins to fall apart. And a lot of these women, it gets to the point where no matter how much I do, she never is satisfied. She's never happy. She's always nitpicking. She's always thinking of more that I can't do and what I should have done and how I should have done it, all that type of shit. So, in many of these relationships, and it got to the point where I got frustrated and I decided to break off the relationship because I got sick and tired of the bullshit. And one thing which I began to realize in my late 30s is, I would say in my late 30s, this is one thing that I began to realize. I got to the point where, you know what? If I meet Mrs. Right, I meet Mrs. Right. If I don't, I don't give two flying fucks. And that's exactly how I felt then when I was in my late 30s, and that's how I still feel today in my mid 40s, and that's how I'm going to continue to feel. I'm to the point in my life now where, you know what? If I meet Mrs. Right, which whatever. If I don't, hey man, whatever. I'm good. And right now, in my mid 40s, I've gotten to the point in my life where I've done a lot of amazing things by myself, for myself, and at this point, I don't, I'm not really tripping on meeting a woman. Would I like to date? I would. It would be nice to have someone who maybe once or twice a week we can get together, we can go out, we can do some stuff together. I'm not gonna lie, it would be nice to have a woman in my life like that. But I've gotten to the point in my life where, I am who I am as a person, and the way I treat money is how I treat money. And I am not one of these kind of people that drive new cars. I am not one of these kind of people that are flashy. As you guys can see right now, I am wearing a plain Jane green t-shirt, which I bought at Goodwill for $2 on the clearance rack. And I drive older cars. And I know a lot of these women out here, they prefer a man that's got big money. They prefer a man that's able to maybe purchase a home in the suburbs. I don't like living in the suburbs. I owned a condo back in the day in the suburbs. I don't like living in the suburbs. I just don't. I mean, and I know a lot of women that would never entertain purchasing some of the houses that I've purchased. They would never entertain living in some of the neighborhoods where I lived. Like, there was a time where I used to live in West Anderson, Indiana. If you don't know about Anderson, Indiana, I got videos on my channel. Go check them out. If you don't know anything about West Anderson is the poorest part of the city of Anderson. It's the poorest part of town. You know, it's considered a hood. And I lived several years in West Anderson. And I know a lot of women that, if they found out that I lived in West Anderson, they wouldn't have a damn thing to do with me. And there used to be a time in my life where that used to bother me, but as I got older, I got to the point in my life where, you know what, I live how I live where I live. All the decisions I make in my life, I don't make decisions based on the feelings of other people. I make decisions based on how I feel, based on my personal needs, not anybody else's needs. So for all of you men out here that you're frustrated because you think you're doing everything right, but you still can't attract the woman that you desire, or maybe you're in a relationship, but no matter what you do, you can't seem to keep her happy. I mean, don't feel bad. If she leaves you, it is what it is. Let her go. Life goes on. I mean, one thing I've learned throughout my adult life, throughout the number of dates and relationships I've been in, is I've learned to live my life for me. I learned to make job, I learned to make career and job choices for me, not for the purpose of trying to appease a woman or trying to impress a woman. When it comes to where I choose to live, I choose to live where I choose to live for me. Again, it ain't got shit to do with no goddamn woman. Like, there used to be a time where I would not live in certain states. I wouldn't live in certain areas because I assumed that the dating pool would be super lame. But now that I'm older and a lot more wisdom, a lot more life experiences, I live where I want to live. I live where I live based on my personal needs, based on my personal wants, not based on no damn woman. Like right now, I live in Alabama. I'm not saying that there's no amazing females in Alabama because I'm pretty sure there is. I just haven't ran into none of them and I'm not looking. I'm here in Alabama. Like if I were to, let's say I went out somewhere like to a grocery store and I came across a woman that was shopping, and we decided we was waiting in the checkout line, and we just decided to start talking to each other. The conversation goes good. We exchange phone numbers. Maybe we go on a date or two, and then she tells me, you know what? I mean, maybe a year later, and I'm speaking hypothetically, if she were to come at me on some, you know what? I want to move to the Northeast. I want to move to, let's say, Pennsylvania. You know what I would do? Well, let me back up. My old me would have been like, okay, so what part of PA you want to go? And let's say she chose Pittsburgh. I would have been like, okay. Now, in the back of my mind, I would have been thinking, man, I ain't really trying to go to Pittsburgh. I'm happy in Alabama. But just to appease her, just to be with her, I would have went on ahead and left Alabama with her and went to Pittsburgh against my personal wishes. But the who I am today, if she were to tell me, you know what, I want to move to Pittsburgh, I would tell her, okay, well, I'm glad we had a chance to know each other. I enjoyed my time with you, and I wish you the best of luck. And obviously, she would realize at that point that I'm not going to be moving to Pittsburgh. And I would nicely tell her that I am not going to be going through to Pittsburgh. I prefer to stay here in Alabama, and that's just where it's going to be. So, you want to go to Pittsburgh? I wish you best of luck. And that would be that. The relationship, if you have one, would be over. And for you men out here that are trying to appease women, you're trying to do certain things in your life, hoping that you meet Mrs. Right. Quit doing all that shit. I mean, as men, what you need to do, you need to live your life how you live your life. You need to be your authentic self. And just be your authentic self. However you dress is how you dress. Whatever occupation you choose to work, you work. Your earnings is what it is. Where you choose to live and how you choose to live, it is what it is. And if you meet a woman that vibes with that, okay, maybe you might have a future with her. But if you meet a woman and she starts criticizing you, oh man, you need to do this, you need to do that, what you're doing is not good, what you're doing ain't right, you know what? Leave her alone. Leave her alone. If you take her on a date and she starts criticizing the hell out of you, make that your first and last date you have with her and keep it pushing. Or if you go on several dates with her, the first time she starts criticizing you like that, make that your last time you see her and let it, keep it pushing. Because, like I said, one thing I've learned to do in my late 30s, and I'm so glad I've came to this. And I'm so glad I've came to this point in my life because I have a lot more peace now than I ever had before when I was younger. But one thing I've learned to do when it comes to women is, like right now, I might get a few people here and there that might ask me, am I married? Do I have a wife? I tell them no. And I tell them, you know what? I have not met Mrs. White yet. And I'm like, a woman would practically have to fall in my lap at this point. And what I mean by that is, I'm not going to go out here and be chasing women. I'm not going to do anything out of my character to appease a woman. I'm not going to be buying a whole bunch of expensive clothes and going through all that, dressing up, trying to impress a woman. I'm not doing none of that shit. Like when I'm off of work, 9 times out of 10, you're going to see me with a t-shirt and some shorts, or if it's cooler outside, you might see me with a t-shirt, a cheap Goodwill jacket, and some work pants. Cause 9 times out of 10, when I'm off of work, I'm probably gonna be doing some kind of work on the house, or I'm gonna be doing, I'm gonna be doing something like that. So it is very rare that you're gonna see me dressed up in a suit and tie or any of that type of stuff. It's very rare. Now I know there's certain men that be like, well, if I dressed up, women would respect me more because I'm dressed up, and that might be, that might be true. I'm not saying it isn't, but that's not me. It's not who I am. So I am who I am, and I'm perfectly comfortable in my own skin. I I'm to the point in my life where if I meet, if I come across a woman that I feel is worthy of dating, and we got that good chemistry together, okay, cool. If that day doesn't come, it is what it is. I ain't tripping. Because, like I said, I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to change my, however I dress is how I dress. Where I live is where I live. The kind of vehicles I drive. It is what it is. I'm not changing nothing about myself. I'm not saying that everything about me is perfect. I'm not saying there's not things about myself that I can't work and improve on. There are, and I will work on those things, namely namely my health. But outside of that, I am who I am. It is what it is. And my attitude when it comes to dating is, uh, take it or leave it. I'm not changing. So for all you men out here that are still chasing women, you're feeling some kind of way because you can't you can't seem to attract the woman that you want. The best thing you can do as a man is just be your authentic self. Just be your authentic self. If you meet if you meet Mrs. Right, you meet Mrs. Right. If you don't, you don't. I mean, at some point, you have to learn to love yourself. You have to learn to enjoy your own company. And until you learn how to love yourself and enjoy your own company, you're going to forever be mad at females. You're going to forever be extra salty at females that tell you no when you ask them out on a date. You're going to forever be online just salty as hell at women. And that's not good. That's not a good look. It makes you look, it makes you look rather pathetic. It makes you look rather weak. So for all you men out here, if you feel that I'm talking to you, take my advice. Learn to love yourself. Control the controllables, which is the person in the mirror. Other than that, don't worry about it. So yeah, like I said, be your authentic self. If you meet Mrs. Right, you meet Mrs. Right. If you don't, you don't. It is what it is. This video is super long, but I just wanted to get all this off my chest. If you made it this far in the video, I thank you for watching. I appreciate every last one of you. I will catch you guys on the next one. Stay blessed.